Today, we are really pleased to have Jeff Wilhite with us to speak with us, provide some perspective on why he thinks he's the right guy at the right time for our city, but also to take some of your questions and our questions about issues that we care a lot about as employers, as businesses, as folks involved in economic development. We will probably go into issues across the board for the city because somebody's bound to ask a question, but there are a lot of forums on a lot of different topics that I hope you've gotten out to see some of the dialogue on, or at least read about it. But a lot of our focus today, I think, will be on business issues and issues related to economic development and the growth of our region. So Jeff Wilhite is currently a councilman, as county councilman in Summit County after having been appointed in 2016 to the unexpired term for an open seat on Summit County Council District 4. District 4 is Akron wards 1, 2, 4, 5, 8, and 10. So if those numbers mean something to you, he may be your county council person as well. It's a small portion as well of Cuyahoga Falls and the eastern half of Bath Township. In November of 2016, Jeff was elected to a full 4-year term, and he ran unopposed for the seat in 2020. He is now the chair of the council's Health and Human Services Committee. He's vice chair of the Finance Committee. He serves on the Public Works Committee and the Planning and Economic Development Committee. And in his first 8 months on council, he sponsored and passed legislation for fuel pump security for consumers at the gas pump to protect against credit card identity theft, which was the first such legislation in any Ohio county. Jeff is president of Summit County Council for 2019 and 2020, and during his tenure, he established the Summit County Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and that's housed under the Western Reserve Fund of the Finance Authority of Summit County after having secured a $1 million commitment to launch the fund. Also during his term as president, he created the Summit County Nursing Home Task Force. That group met in this room a number of times to sort of bring folks together around the long-term treatment of residents and long-term care facilities, and also to establish recommendations for improvements for care. And obviously, that community, that industry has had a lot to think about over the last few years with the pandemic and other kinds of issues. He is also, when he's not running for office, and being on county council and doing all that work, he serves as executive director of Family Promise of Summit County, which assists homeless families with children reach sustainable independence. So through that work, they've set up a new residential center and endowment for the organization and have served a whole lot of families in our community with that activity. He also has 30 years of private business and public service experience. He served as president and managing partner of Hydrogen Energy Systems, president of ECD Ovonics Hydrogen Energy Division, and senior administrative positions for Summit County and the city of Akron. So there's lots here that he's also been deputy mayor for administration at the city, deputy director of planning for the city of Akron. He was the chief operating officer of the National Inventors Hall of Fame and founding executive director of the Summit Akron Solid Waste Management Authority, now called Reworks. So he's got a lifelong interest in family issues, affordable housing, education, innovation, and environmental initiatives. He's a grad of University of Akron College of Business, and he's also a Leadership Akron and Leadership Ohio graduate. His wife Cindy, and he have 2 grown children and 2 granddaughters. So I think all that's important to sort of lay out because a lot about who the person is important to who the leader is. And so, Jeff, you clearly have a lot of experience in a lot of different venues in our community over your lifetime. Talk to us about why you're the right guy right now, and just give us some opening thoughts to get our conversation started today.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you to the Chamber, and thank all of you for taking time out of your day to come and learn more about this race. It is an important race. I felt absolutely compelled to step in because of the background that I have, the ability that I have to bring people to the table and problem solve. I very much like doing that, being able to bring folks together and solve critical issues. One example of that is we have a serious housing issue. While it's not unique to Akron or Summit County, we still have to address it. And one way to do that is to help fill in the gaps for those ladies and gentlemen who are developers in the area looking to develop affordable housing. So we sat down actually at my kitchen table and brought together all of the housing folks in the community, some legal folks to look at the legal issues and also the overall economic issues with that. And we created the Summit Akron, or the Summit County Affordable Housing Trust Fund. That fund is there so that if we have a developer that's thinking about developing in our area, but might have a shortage in their financial stack, whatever that might be. This fund can help fill that gap and hopefully make sure that development happens here in our community, with the win being affordable housing, getting more affordable housing for the community. So very much involved in that kind of activity my entire career, but we have to focus on some very serious issues here as a city. Safety is first priority. Education for all residents. Certainly our young folks, so that they can be feeders for all of you with your businesses going forward. That's vitally important. And then making sure that our city services are strong. I was just talking with Mr. Shipper about the street right out here in front of the building, in very, very serious need of repair. And he made a great point. Could we finish the development on Main Street down here, because this is a very important block to the economic engine of the city. With Gojo, with GPD, and all the folks in the building behind me, all the folks in the building here, very important businesses, and we need to make sure that we pay attention to those city services so that those folks stay here in Akron.
Thanks, Jeff. We're going to go in a number of different directions. Again, if folks have questions as we go along, I'm going to give Jeff the opportunity to answer a couple of questions, and then we'd be happy to just indicate you've got a question, and we'll sort of shoot your direction. So you talked about housing there a minute ago, and just coming off of the mayor's State of the City this morning, one of the things he talked about is the acceleration of new housing in our community over the last 8 years from prior times. As you think about housing, is it just workforce housing that we should be most concerned about? Is it downtown housing? I mean, how do you see housing tying with development of our city and the attraction of a talent here? Absolutely.
No, it's very much tied to downtown. It's tied to every ward, every neighborhood in the city. When we say new housing development, we have to pay attention to the equity in that, because there are a lot of folks who just quite frankly can't afford $250,000 and up homes. Those are very important to have in the mix, because that helps us attract professional individuals here to the community, because they're newer homes and they have the amenities. But that doesn't preclude existing housing to be renovated, to have those opportunities and be affordable for individuals across the city. But from a workforce development perspective, I look forward to, if successful May 2nd, building a workforce housing initiative, because how wonderful would it be for you, ladies and gentlemen, if you're trying to attract talent, if you can offer that new talent home ownership. Now, understanding that not everybody wants to mow the grass and shovel the snow and do that kind of thing. I get that. But there are many young professionals who are coming to the area, or who we want to attract to the area, that have young families. First and foremost, they want to know we've got good schools, all the way from K to post graduate. That there are training programs to develop their skills and their talent for the jobs that we need here in the city. It's a complete package, and I think we do ourselves a disservice if we don't pay attention to workforce housing in that mix, along with affordable housing, because any tool, the city can't be all things to everybody, but if we can assist you all in making sure that the basics are there for attracting the talent that you need to do your business on a regular basis, that's critical, and that will be a major focus for me going forward.
So just one more question in this space, because you're so deep on housing and sort of the needs of folks in that space. So we've got both a combination of maybe potentially redevelopment of some of our downtown properties and buildings into sort of apartments and a kind of a cool place to live, a place to attract maybe younger people who want to sort of establish themselves here. We also have a lot of vacant property throughout the community. We have a lot of housing stock that's in pretty bad shape. I've seen work that's being done by people like Zach Cole in Middlebury in terms of helping residents there revitalize their own homes, increase property values, and create more destinations for people. Talk about your view as mayor in terms of where you would take us in that space.
Mm-hmm. Sure. I think an important part of the of the opportunity, quite frankly, that we have are the vacant properties that we have across the city. My focus will be developing those first. I will put a priority on that and any incentives that we could come up with to entice people to do that. Because think about it, the services are already there. The water runs down the street, the sewer's there, the sidewalks are there, the street is improved. All the amenities that you need are there. So you start from an elevated standpoint in terms of the infrastructure needed for the housing that we're looking at. Many of the properties, if you look at them, are properties that were built. They might have a 50-foot, 60-foot front on them. Not really conducive to building homes that folks want now. So we can take a look at that inventory, and we can pull those lots together and create more attractive, affordable opportunities with that availability, so that the developers out there can be incentivized to build the kind of houses that we need to fill that in. But that would be a priority because it's already there. Let's not ignore what already exists for new development somewhere else. Now, new development is important, but let's have a comprehensive land use plan collectively that we all agree upon going forward, so we don't miss this opportunity for taking advantage of that inventory that's out there and just, quite frankly, cost the city money, because you got to mow the grass, you got to pick up the scrap tires that are thrown there, and all that costs us money as taxpayers. But to the degree that we can develop that into really good quality, affordable housing, equity across the city in terms of price points, I think that makes sense.
So you and I have had an opportunity to talk about the work that we've been doing collaboratively with the city, the county, and a whole variety of other organizations through Elevate Greater Akron. Mm-hmm. And that is sort of the broad sort of economic development strategy that we've been collaborating on to sort of make sure all of our partners are connected on initiatives of mutual need and opportunity. Are there particular aspects of that plan that sort of really speak to you that you'd want to lean in harder from the city's perspective?
Yeah, well, first of all, the overall plan, kudos to everybody that was a part of developing that plan, because it is an extraordinary plan. I had an individual say to me, ask me a question publicly at a debate, you're supporting Elevate Akron, but you're not paying any attention to minorities in that plan. Well, I suggested that he read the plan, because there is a diversity piece very much a part of that plan going forward, and that speaks to the equity piece that I mentioned with housing. Until and unless we level the playing field across the spectrum in terms of everybody having an opportunity to advance their business or start a business, whatever that opportunity might be. What's great about the Elevate Greater Akron plan is that it pays attention to everything that we know is important. I think the most important piece that is from what I'm hearing from you all as I talk to businesses across the city is that workforce development piece, making sure that you have the talent you need to be able to do your business. We've got a great start with the public schools, the school academies. That's a great approach. But we have some amazing businesses here, and what I like about that is that we'll pay attention to that, but we've got to tell our story more. And I'll give you a prime example. I was talking with a young man. He's 19. He's getting ready to go into the trades. He wants to be involved in the trades. Not sure where he wants to ultimately go with that, but he's looking more from an electric trade standpoint. He's very interested in IT. And his comment was, I don't want to go to work for the businesses here because they're all old, dirty, grungy factories. Well, I suggested to him that he call some of those businesses and go visit them, mm-hmm. because that's not the case here, and you guys know that. You're talking about opportunities for someone, especially who's interested in IT and in a technology perspective. CNC operations, those are fascinating. I'll get a little wonky here because I love fixing things with my hands too. Ask my wife.
Are you any good at it?
I'm not good at it.
Okay,
ask my wife.
Okay.
But I enjoy that very much, and I get real excited about how things are put together. If someone has a manufacturing process, somebody had to design that machine to make this bottle come out at the end. That's pretty impressive because everything has to work in a sequence and in sync. We have to do the same thing with our promotion of all of you in the community. We've got to get young people in front of your businesses so that they can see, hey, you know what, there is opportunity for me here in Akron. It's not, I don't have to leave the area because there's some really cool stuff happening right here in the community, in the region. Give you one quick example. Celicor, longtime company over in Sharon Center. They develop, of all things, balloon apparatus for party balloons and what have you. But they have created a very cool process, because we all know the plastic straws is an environmental issue worldwide. They are working with Jose Cuervo to take their agave plant throw-off and manufacture straws and the plasticware that we use at restaurants and things, and it biodegrades 200 times faster than a piece of plastic, number one. Number two, it's again, ingenuity, inventive process, the creative process that went out. It looked at a problem, solved the problem, and now it's an industry. And they've got 5 machines. I think I'm allowed to say that. I can't go too much deeper because I don't want to get into their proprietary stuff. But
I don't want to get sued.
Yeah. But they've got 5 lines that'll be producing this, and it'll be a worldwide a celebration. You guys, that's right here. That's right here in our region. Look at all of you in this room. Didado Electric. I can remember when Didado was just a small electric shop. Now look at you guys. You're all over the state and other states in the area. Young people need to know all the opportunities that you have there, because it's the cool stuff that they want to get their hands on and be a part of. We all know not everybody is primed for a 4-year or above degree. We know that, but that doesn't mean you can't have a great living working with your hands. And if you become a carpenter, a plumber, an electrician, all of those types of trades, we need you, number one. That's the starting point. But look at all the opportunity that can come, as a result of that.
So I was in a discussion recently about this emerging out-of-school time network that is being thought about in our community. So the idea is, I saw an amazing statistic that said where juvenile crime or violence is involved, and it should be obvious, but the majority of it happens between like 3 o'clock in the afternoon and 6 or 7 o'clock at night, right? Mm-hmm. That time between when kids are done with school and when mom and dad might get home, or when whatever happens and structured in the evening for them. And one of the other statistics I heard in that discussion was maybe as recently as 10 years ago, we had a youth employment jobs program in our community that was employing 1,000 kids on an annual basis, and that number's down to something like 100 now in terms of that program. So as we think about how we engage kids in work, in career-oriented sort of exploration or other kinds of work experiences, to me that feels like very connected to what you're talking about there.
Mm-hmm. It is. Steve, one of the things that I just find absolutely fascinating is, the cell phone has ruled our lives now, and young people, that's their life. That's where they see things. But if you think about it, they're looking for answers visually. They want to see a visual response to a question or an issue that they're looking at. Let's make that real life. Let's go back to those kinds of programs and create a means and an opportunity to bring those young people to your businesses. Let them see that visual of what you do, and I'll guarantee you they'll get excited about seeing that because it's something that they just don't know exists. And if you don't know it's there, you're gonna bypass it. You're gonna go somewhere else. But bringing folks in and seeing what's happening, also their parents and their whole environmental structure. Young people want direction. I'll challenge anyone who says young people today are just they're a lost generation. No, they're not. They want direction. They'll step up to guidance and accountability and all those things. They crave that. So let's fill in that craving. That's one thing that the city can do. We can work with the chamber, work with the schools, work with individual businesses, and make that happen. And we've got a great resource to help us get them there. with Metro. Work with Metro and see how we can work with them to help fill in that transportation gap. They're always looking at ways to do that. And this would be one that they would be a very valuable part of that equation going forward. So absolutely, Steve. I think bringing that kind of opportunity back to young people is spot on.
So on your way here today, right, you came down our main street, and many people have said that our main street looks about as good as it has looked in a long time. I mean, the work that's been done there, the way in which it's sort of been cleaned up, et cetera. But our downtown still suffers from not being as vibrant a place as we might like it to be. How does downtown development fit into your thinking as mayor as we go forward? What are some of the priorities, even in your first year, that you would sort of put out there for downtown development?
I would look at, again, whatever the city has available to incentivize those ladies and gentlemen that own the buildings on Main Street. How can we help you get over that post-COVID whole isolation mentality that folks have right now? We have something coming that I heard not too long ago, that it's being dubbed our Central Park, the new redevelopment of Lock 3. Being able to focus on the kinds of cultural opportunities that the city can be involved in that attracts people to an area. We've got Elevate Greater Akron. We've got a perfect plan to move forward with economic development-wise. We have the Arts Now plan. A whole lot of ladies and gentlemen did the same thing there. They developed an amazing plan for the region, and when you look at their economic engine, their $1.7 billion worth of revenue they bring to the region. So anything that the city can do to get out of their way, first and foremost, but be there to make sure that they can deliver on some of those things that they've got planned, which are extraordinary. And it's all parts of the arts and the cultural community, celebrating the visual arts, the performing arts, very, very important. But being able to bring those kinds of amenities so that it enhances what the offering is for the ladies and gentlemen who own the buildings. Mm-hmm. Incentivizing them so that if they decide to condo their building where they have some retail versus some rental space. I talked with Susie Graham, and she tells me that the housing piece is strong, that a lot of the housing rentals it's up there, a high percentage, 80-some%, I believe. That's a great start. Now, how do we enhance that and make sure that we keep that moving? Because every one of you know that the whole work paradigm has shifted. And if we could maybe offer some co-op opportunities for folks who have businesses who may not need office every day, but maybe just need them, for, like this room is a prime example. How do we do co-ops for them? Offer them resources that they can take advantage of. And communication is a big piece for me that I think is critically important. We're being taped by AMP Strategies today, a wonderful company here in Akron, a female-owned business. They are not only do video, but they do strategies for businesses. I'm using them with Family Promise for a housing initiative that we're doing. They're doing a documentary for us that actually will become a nationally used document across the Family Promise network nationally. Prime example, can we offer a co-op to businesses, not just downtown, but to help the businesses out throughout the city and the service area of Greater Akron Chamber? Can we help you with your marketing initiatives? Can we pull AMP and Triad and folks like that together under a resource that helps you guys tell your story, communicate your business, help you with your IT activities, all of those things? I think what COVID did, while it pulled back the curtain and showed that we had to isolate. Well, I think what's happened is people have realized isolation is not going to cut it. We have to be communal, if you will, in the approach that we take for our businesses to be successful and promote from within. Because you guys, nobody from New York or Georgia or pick a place is going to help us tell our story. They're just not going to. We have to tell our story, and we have to make sure that what we know we're capable of doing gets out there. And we can do it, because I'm going to come back to Elevate Greater Akron. That wasn't done by a New York firm. That wasn't done by a Los Angeles firm. That was done by the ladies and gentlemen who live here, work here, and understand this community. And they came up with a fantastic approach to move forward. Same with Arts Now Group. They pulled together they know what they're doing. So we've got the talent and the capability to do it right here.
So Jeff, I just want to check and see if folks have questions that you might want to sort of ask Jeff as we sort of go along here. I've got 100. I can keep going. So go ahead, please.
So I'm new to the Akron area, so I have a little bit of a different view coming in here. There was a high number of properties that were being purchased and then flipped as rentals, and that is both a blessing and a curse in an area like this. I'm from Metro Detroit, so I definitely know about comeback stories. And how those types of things can impact affordability for new homeowners. I'm curious as to your thoughts on that, if you're aware of the prevalence of that practice.
Before you answer, Jeff, let me try to capture the question just for the tape. And the question was sort of related to an observation that there's been a number of properties purchased and potentially flipped, and how does that impact the economics of housing and housing availability?
Specifically into rentals.
Specifically for rentals.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, the major problem there is you have these corporations that come in and they'll buy up big blocks of a property, and they don't do anything with them. Quite frankly, the rents, and I know this from a daily activity with Family Promise, we help homeless families get into sustainable housing, and the rents have gone through the roof. I mean, beyond anybody's affordability. And I'm going to just say it. Some of the properties that we're talking about, I wouldn't let my dog live in those properties. And I mean that to be very harsh and direct, because they're dilapidated. Some don't have heat. Some don't have water. And they're $1,100, $1,200, $1,400 a month in their rental. I will, on my administration, have a person devoted strictly to housing, and that person, their job is not only the affordable housing piece of it, but also to get at this very problem. We can't have it be just part of a department and we work on it whenever we get to it. It has to be a full court press to address that. What can we do legally? I'm not an attorney, and I don't want to throw anything out there that would be a legal challenge, but we have to determine what we're able to do with the zoning codes, with the state codes, all of those things, so that we can make it difficult for those people. Look, that's a snub to us. If they're living in California and they come and buy up 50 properties and let them fall apart, it's not fair to the people who live next door, across the street, down the street, because you've just killed their life investment. You've made it go down in value. That's wrong. Being able to go after them in a serious way and make them understand, you're welcome to invest here, but you're going to take care of it too, like the rest of us have to. That'll be a major priority. And I have to put a shout out to Huntington Bank, because Nick Browning and his team are saying no to loans for people that are trying to do that. They come to them with a package, give us a loan for X because we're buying these properties, we're creating a business, and we're going to rent them. Huntington says, nope, can't have our money. And it's that kind of help that the city's going to need too, from the lending community, from the social service community, right on across the board.
One of the things that we talk about in terms of cities is the ability to do business with your city. Do you have a perspective on sort of what you would be doing in your administration to make it easier for our businesses to do business with the city, or developers to do business with the city? Do you have a perspective on how easy or hard it is today?
Well, we've just found out it's a key issue right now with the current administration on contract bidding and making that process open and transparent. That's the approach I will take. It will be an extremely transparent approach, and to the degree that we can legally offer incentives to promote Akron business, Summit County business first, why wouldn't we do that?
Sure.
Because that puts the money right back here into the community. And I'm not saying that to be parochial. I'm saying that to be smart, because I can't attract new businesses if the current businesses are struggling. And if the message gets out there that we're strong in support of our businesses here locally, we want you here, we want to keep you here, absolutely that's going to be the approach that I'm going to take. Very, very transparent and look at what I would be allowed to do legally to be able to get around that. Because you've got to remember, they're public dollars, and those there are guidelines for that, so we got to be careful on that. But let's blow up the model. Let's see, because it's not working now. That's clear. So to the degree that we could invest in local businesses, we have to do it. I just told you about Celicor. That's a great example. There's hundreds of those examples around this community, and to ignore them is to our peril.
Do you see a role being on point on your cabinet for entrepreneurship or for small businesses, or is it just more of the traditional sort of economic development focus?
It won't be traditional economic development. I say that without any hesitation. We again have to blow up that model. We've got a chamber, a very active chamber here. There'll be a bigger role for them in my administration. I can't sit here or in City Hall and tell you how to run your business. I can't do that. And what I'm big on is taking the barriers down to let you go forward. And here's the deal I've made with everybody. Let's try new things, because if COVID did anything, again, it pulled the curtain back. We got to be different now. We're not going back to pre-COVID. So what can we do to enhance the economic development opportunities here that is unique? I'm all for stealing best practices. Let's not ignore that if that works. But what's wrong with us creating our own destiny as well? And the deal that I make is, look, if we try something and we fail, blame me. But if it works, we've moved the needle forward. I'll take 5% of something versus 100% of nothing every day of the week. And if that needle's moving in the positive direction for us, why would we not do that? And celebrate the ladies and gentlemen who make that happen on a regular basis.
Elizabeth, go ahead.
Jeff, the chamber has done a whole lot as it relates to equity and inclusion, getting people at the table here to talk, and it's been very enlightening for somebody like me who, like, why am I buying all my stuff from some national store when I can get it right here? And we just need to do more of that. So I really appreciate, trying to have, I know you have a directory, but trying to help businesses say, why do I have to go to Land's End to do this when I can get some guy over here at the corner of Main and Market who has a store that'll make all my shirts. So I really appreciate that. My question was, does the city, when we were talking about housing, does the city own housing? Do they own houses?
I don't know that answer.
I don't know that either. As I was inquiring, there was a thing on NPR, so if it was on NPR, it was correct, but it was something about selling these houses low and giving local folks the opportunity to really build into. And I had inquired, and basically the response was, we don't own houses.
Yeah. Oftentimes those are land banked in communities. Yeah, they're land banked or lots or properties.
That's right.
So you can petition to get those properties if you have development plans or you want to renovate them, et cetera. So there are a lot of cities have begun to think about. Every city does it a little bit differently, but how they take that property and make it available to folks who will make specific kinds of improvements to it. So,
right. The Summit County Land Bank owns a large number of the vacant properties that are across the county. I'm sure there's property that the city owns. I don't know specifically about houses.
Yep.
But Elizabeth, if I could, the point that you made about being able to do things locally here. One of the things that has been an absolute joy for me is when I've had the time, I've been going out and talking to local businesses. And I found this the most amazing business that's still in Akron. It's over on Triplet Boulevard. It's Hilltop Hobby. You guys, it's an old style hobby center. It's been there forever, hobby shop. You walk in, you open the door and it gives you a train whistle. It's all things, toy trains and slot cars and antique toys and sports memorabilia and all kinds of things. Only one of its kind left in Akron. That's sad. But we got to keep them. And what is so unique about this, and I know looking out at the businesses that are here, you guys are just as good at this as they are. Small business, employs 5 people, but gives back to the community. It's not just the economic engine of the business that we have to look at. It's the philanthropic spirit of many of the businesses that are out there. We are so blessed with organizations across this community that do wonderful things for people. Mark Hamrick is the gentleman who owns that business. He has a grandchild that is suffering from a rare disease. He is looking for a space. He had all of the trains that used to be down at Quaker Square. If you went down there when Quaker Square was alive and thriving, all those neat toys, he's got all that stuff. He wants to create an exhibit here where folks can come and see it, because there is a big, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. I didn't realize that till I met him. But here's a guy who opens his door every day, employs 5 people, pays his taxes here, but that's not all he does. He wants to create this exhibit so that the money for people coming to visit goes to development of technology for that medicine. How many businesses do that here in this community? All of you guys are involved in that. As mayor, I'm going to promote that. I'm going to celebrate that, because it's who we are as a community. It's the fabric of who we are, because there's a lot of good people here in this community. And just driving by a business, okay, they're a business, but they do a whole lot more than just open in the morning and close at night and balance their books at the end of the quarter. So, to Elizabeth's point, there's a lot of that happens here. So why would we not promote those businesses so that they're successful at what they do, buying it here locally versus somewhere else?
So go ahead, please, Emily.
Sure.
My father was a Citizen of the Year a couple years before he passed away, great friends with Sheriff Alexander. I know that we have a new sheriff in town. I haven't spoken personally with that person like I used to with Drew, but had a situation, a law enforcement situation in my condo complex, largest condo complex in Summit County, and heard some rumors about the philosophy on law enforcement with this new sheriff. So I just love to hear your thoughts on that, or your feelings about how we're doing with law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, how are we doing with law enforcement? What's your philosophy around law enforcement and your perspectives there?
Okay. Well, first of all, Candy Fothery, who is the new Summit County Sheriff, has done an incredible job on a lot of fronts. Diversity and inclusion, she's worked very hard on that. She's very accessible. That's very important with any of our law enforcement folks. You guys, we need law enforcement. We absolutely need them. And it's got to be a mutual relationship between citizens and the ladies and gentlemen who put the uniform on. It has to be. Both sides have to feel safe, they have to feel respected, and they have to feel protected. That is absolutely critical going forward. As a community, we need to give them all the resources that they need to do their job. We need to make sure that the training fits the need. I'm a big proponent of training that's de-escalation style training. That's important. And not just for our law enforcement folks, all of us. You guys have customers that come to your business angry about something or whatever. You don't want to elevate that situation. You want to de-escalate that situation. So collectively as a community, if we all could focus on that, I think that's something that is absolutely critical. But I will tell you that from all the conversations I've had, young people especially, they don't like the violence. They don't want the violence. And there's some great programs directed at them. But I created the Police and Fire Community Development Fund at the Akron Community Foundation. I attended a Young Black Professionals meeting, and they were talking about police community engagement. And Officer Lloyd Ford at the time, he's retired now from the Akron Police Department, told us about how his ladies and gentlemen, when they're out in their districts patrolling, they'll stop and they'll buy a pizza and they'll sit down with some young folks just to get to know them. That story doesn't get out there. People aren't hearing that, our law enforcement officers are doing that, but guess what? They pay for that out of their pocket. So afterwards, several of us got together and said, well, that's not right. You know, we got to help them do that kind of a thing. It could be something as simple as buying a basketball and, you know, shooting some hoops with them on a break or whatever. But having that opportunity to build trust. Trust takes time, but it's quickly broken. We heard that message this morning as well in the state of the city. But it's true. Trust takes time. And you can't get there unless you make the effort to do that. So with law enforcement, they now have a resource. It was pre-COVID we did it. COVID hit, it kind of went crickets. I will be committing to some kind of an annual event with the pulpit of the mayor to have an event to raise money to keep funding that endowment, because the bigger it gets, the more it can throw off and the more great things can happen as a result.
Please, Chris.
So you mentioned housing and the importance of that. There's a saying that the zip code you live in determines how long you live. And we've had these discussions about maternal health and infant mortality. We've talked about food. There's been a discussion about food deserts. Would you have someone in your cabinet that will look at that data and look to close some of those gaps? Previously in my work, I worked at a federally qualified health center. Our goal was to make sure that we could provide health care to the underserved. And so we had a collaboration with the food bank where we were able to offer a food as medicine program, make sure we educate and inform our consumers about the importance of healthy living and healthy eating. But it seems to be one of those conversations that doesn't come up until there's something that comes up in the media. Any thoughts about that?
No.
So just the question was sort of related to how will your cabinet, how will your administration focus on issues around mortality, the impact, the social determinants of health, those kinds of issues, especially related to food and other kinds of opportunities.
Yeah. Thanks for the question. That's a great point. And the answer is yes. There will be a person on my cabinet focused solely on housing, because I am a dyed-in-the-wool believer, until and unless a family can be a homeowner and start their generational wealth as a homeowner, a whole lot of issues affect family. Because when you've got young people who are sitting in school and you expect them to be paying attention, and their whole life they've been waiting for this. It's the landlord at the end of the day when they go home from school, and they're not going to live there tomorrow. They're not going to see their friends in that school because they're going to be moving someplace else. That's wrong. That goes to all the health-related issues that we know is out there. Making sure that folks all across the city, everybody wants the same thing, you guys. For our families, we want to make sure that they're warm, safe, and dry. We want to make sure they're fed, they're clothed, and they're educated. And that is absolutely a critical thing. It can't be a spot-by-spot, event-by-event kind of approach. And that person would be under that structure would be all of those things that go into housing, because your mental health is affected by your daily environment. And if it has those kinds of stresses, you've got to be working on those on a regular basis. But what makes me confident in saying that and not having to wait for pundits or anybody to tell me if that's a smart move or not is I know the people of this community will step up to that and will fill those gaps to make sure that happens for our neighbors and friends across the community, because that's who we are. I've seen it time and time again. I'm gonna take a second and share just a prime example of that. And thanks to big thanks to Dawn and her folks at Metro and the board there. There's a gentleman in the community. His name's Robert Ford. Probably one of the most beautiful human beings I've ever met. All Rob wants to do is make sure that at the end of the day people are fed. He has a program called Forever Our Children. And his mission in life is to collect food and make sure that it gets distributed to folks who have the food gap. But he knows it's more than just that. So he came up with an idea. It's going to be for homeless. And think about this, because it makes sense. If you are homeless, where do you get a shower? Where do you go? If you're lucky, you can sneak in somewhere and maybe wash in a sink or whatever. But that's a part of the things that we have to focus on as a community, because that tells our story collectively, how we treat people. So he sat down with the folks at Metro. I didn't know this, and Don, if I'm saying this wrong, correct me, but the rolling stock that Don has is owned by the federal government, because the federal dollars buy our buses. So they looked at their inventory. They've pulled a bus out of service. It's end of life, but still in great shape because they do a pretty darn good job maintaining stuff. So this bus is now going to become a mobile shower. They're going to retrofit this bus. It will go around the community, and folks who need a shower can need a shower. Now you're probably saying, Jeff, that's just so Pollyanna. No, it's not. It's not Pollyanna. It's humanitarian, because if somebody, just the basics, you guys, of eating and getting a shower can't do that, but we collectively as a community have solved that problem, I'll tell that story across the world, because that's who we are. And that's who you all are as businesses, because I've seen it time and time again. You're excellent at coming together when there's an issue. We've done it throughout our history. And that's that kind of thing that I would be focused on, but not just because she's sitting here, but Dawn, thank you for that, because had you not stepped up, that wouldn't be something that we have available. So her team has been really, really solid on that. But again, she doesn't have to do that. Her job every day is to move people. She doesn't have to worry about those other ancillary things. But again, her board, her staff, and she as well understand what community means and how we have to make sure that we elevate that community on all fronts.
Jeff, we're kind of coming close on time. Are there other questions? Go ahead. So I guess, let me just ask you, what do you have concerns about for the future of our community? Are there a couple of things that are sort of, eating at you, if you will, in terms of what we just have to do in the next few years that you'd want to prioritize in your administration? Right.
We've got to stop asking or looking at other people to answer our problems. We've got to stop that, because we've got the talent. Complacency bothers me a lot, and sort of that malaise, kind of factor. We've come out of this global pandemic. People have isolated themselves in a lot of ways. We got to change that. We've got to get away from we can't do it. We can't do it. We can't do it. Yes, we can do it, because we've got the resources to do it, and I think that's critical going forward. So that's one of the things that's driving me is I want to see the community get back to a point of we can do it. We can do it, and understand that the way that we do that is we celebrate ourselves as we move through that process. Because I'm going to tell you, it is something I have seen for a very, very, very long time. And just walked in, the gentleman that just walked in is the person that instilled that in me when I was in high school. He was our ward councilman, and he was everything for the kids, everything for the kids. And I got to tell you, it stuck, Don. If you ever wanted to be a teacher, at least in one case you were, because it's in the core of who I am, to give back to the community, and that's what I know this community is capable of doing, and that's what I want to lead it to going forward. I don't need the credit. I again, as I said, let's try stuff, you guys. If we fail, blame me. I'm okay with that. Blame me. But if we succeed at what we set out to do, two things are going to happen. One, we're going to succeed and move the needle towards something positive. Because again, I'll take 5% of something versus 100% of nothing. Keep moving that needle in the positive direction. If it fails, we're going to learn something. Everybody gets afraid of, oh my God, if I try something, we might fail. Well, I got to tell you, my failures are volumes. My successes, not so much. But the successes have been phenomenal. It's afforded myself and my family a great living, but it's because I tried. And you got to get out there and do that. And that's what you all do every day. You're the heroes in the community, because it is not easy being in business. All the things you have to worry about in the course of a day. But if you've got a city that's behind you and backing you, and you know that's the mentality of who they are, we're going to have great success going forward. There's no question.
Councilman Wilhite, thank you for your time today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.